Welcome to the channel and welcome to the non-rant video about the Sony RX1R Mark III. Please subscribe to this channel. This is a non-sponsored channel. All I have is the help from subscribers. I think most of you have seen pretty much all the videos, even before the camera was in anybody's hands, people ranting about it, saying it lacks this, it lacks that, and it's a very heavy price to pay and all that. So I don't want to waste your time or my time talking about those things. And if you're a pro in terms of, shooting streets seriously or events, weddings where you want a fixed lens innocuous camera, can this be a good partner for you? That's what I want to talk about, and I want to compare it with this camera, which is the GFX 100 RF. So this is going to be a week of testings. I've got the Fuji GFX 100 RF. Another camera is going to come, which I'm going to compare this with. So let's shoot this beauty. Medium format, 100 megapixels, fixed lens. Let's see how this one does.
It has that retro style that generally attracts people. Like, people go and then they will notice, and sometimes you might get some good reaction as well. Autofocus is really good. It is clinical as always, as Sony's are.
And why am I comparing a medium format to a full frame? Because they are in the same group of cameras. And I know the Leica Q3 belongs in the same group, but the Q3 is way more expensive than these two. And I think it is the best camera around. The Q3 is really good. Here is my review of the Q3. I still think it's a fantastic camera in terms of, autofocus. Leica made a huge leap there in terms of the flip screen, which I always wanted in the Q series. So I think the Q3 is a class apart. If you have the money, I think you should just blindly go for it. But if you're looking at something in the $5,000 range, these two are directly competing with each other. So among these two, which one is really good? Let's talk about the RX1R III. I just put it, I just have a strap on this, not a neck strap, but a kind of a hand strap. And I hold it like this, and it is really light. And I can carry this all day, no problem. Ergonomics, I think I miss something here, right? For the grip. My hands are small, so I don't mind the small form factor, palm size. So form factor, I think I love this. And, it is supposed to be like this. I mean, you want this camera to be innocuous, right? You want this camera to not be noticed. And that's the beauty of this. And that's exactly how it is. The Fuji, maybe because it's a silver, I think at least 3 people came up and said, wow, that's a great camera. But I do find that I like holding the Fuji better than the Sony. But I think functionality wise, the fact that this is unnoticeable is better and it's smaller is better, because you don't look like a serious photographer with this. The best thing about it is people don't even think you're a serious photographer, especially in street and weddings and events. You don't want to attract too much attention. You want to be able to get close to people, but at the same time not really scare them or make them feel conscious. And this does that beautifully. All day yesterday I was roaming around and nobody even gave a damn. I almost looked like a phone photographer, generally doing video or just shooting some pictures casually. And that is really, really something that you would value if you were into street documentary or events. On the other hand, this guy was attracting all the attention. Again, maybe because it's silver, maybe the black would have been slightly more innocuous. The moment you kind of take it close, people wanted to have a conversation about this camera. So if you want to attract attention, you want to strike a conversation and then, click a street portrait or something, this might help because people are curious about this. But The advantage of this is that it has a flip screen. And I love shooting from the hip. I just look down, and if somebody's coming or somebody's approaching, I just click, to focus. I click the screen. But here's the disadvantage. Somehow I'm not able to figure, or maybe this doesn't have it. It doesn't have the touch the screen, focus, and trigger the shutter. It doesn't have that. And that, I think, is something Fuji missed, because if I were able to do that, I could easily shoot without being conscious. Now, I'm a guy who doesn't feel very comfortable approaching a lot of people, talking to a lot of people when I'm doing street or even events. So I think, that is a big miss. But this one has that. So I can hold it, and but then there's a disadvantage. It doesn't have a flip screen. So yeah, you win some, you lose some. I would have loved it if the Fuji had the touch, focus, and trigger the shutter, and I would have loved if this had a flip screen. Now, the disadvantage of such a small form factor, the buttons are all too close to each other, a little too fiddly, but I don't think that's a huge problem. I mean, I don't fiddle around with buttons too much anyway. I'm mostly on aperture priority. I set the shutter speed at around 200 because people are moving around, I'm moving around, I don't want any motion blur or anything. And then I just have to adjust my exposure compensation if at all I need to. Autofocus. Pleasantly surprised that the Fuji seems to be the best GFX camera as far as AF is concerned.
Yeah, so the focus seems more sticky than the X106.
Sticky. What about the speed? Is it faster, or
It seems a
does it
little better.
latch on quicker?
It latches on quicker. I was using XT50,
Okay.
which I believe is not very different from X106 in terms of focus. So this I find this a little bit better, to be honest.
Now, I've had the first generation of the GFX 50 MP cameras. I've had the 100 Mark II, which was supposed to be the best in terms of autofocus till then. But this one, oh my God, this is really good. Especially if you have the human eye detect kind of on. It latches on to people quickly, and it tracks them, and it really nails focus. The only thing, if at all, I'm nitpicking here, but there seems to be a little bit of shutter lag. So while it's focusing and tracking, when you press the shutter, it doesn't feel like it's shooting at that particular instant. But that said, did I really miss focus or anything? No, I didn't. I think it kind of nailed focus 90+% of the time. But this one is a monster. Oh my God. I know the lens is old, and there were apprehensions on whether this lens would be optimally partnered with the AI AF and stuff like that. But trust me, no issues. It just tracks beautifully. It focuses on the instant, and as you shoot, it's almost like there's no shutter lag. It's like cut, 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 cut. It just goes. So you're never going to miss focus with this guy. And the funny part, like if there are multiple people in your scene, somehow the Sony seems to latch on to the person you want it to latch on. Now, this is unsubstantiated. I don't know if the AI, is so good that it's kind of figuring that out. Like, for example, it might be the person closest, or it might be the person in the center, but not the closest, and so on. But somehow the Sony seems to get it right almost all the time. So both of them are really good in terms of AF. The Sony is a notch better, but it's just a notch better. That's all. Let's talk about the lenses. Now, 35 f2 and equivalent of a 28 mm field of view f4. I think I personally prefer an f2 lens. Now, I don't shoot in terrible light. I've always spoken about it in my videos. Good photographers shoot in good light or make their own light. So I am not really bothered that I have to push, 2 stops of ISO higher in the same situation for the GFX. And the denoise function currently in Photoshop is absolutely excellent. So, it really removes any unwanted noise. But Given a choice, I would prefer the f2, but guess what? I prefer the 28 field of view because it just gives me wider, and I go back to the video where I compared the Leica Q3 and the 43, and I said, you can always crop in, but you can't crop out. So the 28 is my preference here. The other fact is that the 100 megapixel, the resolution is so good, and even if you crop and crop and crop, the picture doesn't disintegrate. The sensor is really good. It really holds its own. So I have shot a few pictures because I was at a fair distance, and to capture the moment, I couldn't really, go close. But then when I cropped it, it was perfect. It was great, no problem at all. You can do that in this also. The picture quality, the sensor quality, the resolution is really good, but the image quality on the 100 is just absolutely mind-boggling. So which one? Which one? I think that's really the question. I'm a little torn right here because I love the form factor and the tiny size of this and the lightweightedness of this to carry it all along, and it's innocuous. I can move around, but I really miss a tilt screen. That's something which I would have really loved in this. I love the 35. I love the f2. This one, I love the camera again. I love the image quality. It's just absolutely stunning. I love the fact that this one is the best camera for autofocus in the GFX line. The lens is beautiful. It does have a bit of distortion, but I think I can live with it. There is an automatic correction that happens, so it takes care of that. The only thing is the form factor. It's slightly bigger, but then it's a medium format. What do you expect? Sure. So for now, let's come to the price. Now, from a price standpoint, I think this one is value for money. There is no doubt about it. If you don't mind the 28 f4, and if you want medium format, you want image quality, you want to get good crops out and good colors, this is the answer. But if you really want to keep a low profile, you don't want conversations, you want to be just a ghost, a fly on the wall, and just shoot, I think this is your answer. Both of them are brilliant cameras, and they have their own quirks, but the choice is between being completely innocuous versus attracting a little bit of attraction but getting absolutely fabulous files to post-process. What do you think? Leave comments. Okay, before I end, one more thing. IBIS. Is that a problem in either case? I don't think so, because what is the primary use of both these cameras? Like I mentioned before, travel, documentary, street. Now, as far as street and documentary are concerned, you do need a high shutter speed, right? So there is no question of camera shake in the hand. You're not going to shoot at 1/15 or something. You're not shooting long exposures or anything. So I don't think the lack of IBIS is such a problem in these cameras. If you really shoot in low or inadequate light, dusk time, just after sunset, and you're a travel photographer, in that particular scenario, you might have a problem, but then just increase the ISO and use the denoise function, you'll be fine. Frankly, I really don't bother about the lack of IBIS. So yeah, there it is. Take your pick. And I really need to decide which one I want to keep and which one I want to sell. It's really tough right now. Let me shoot a few more days with it, and then we'll figure that out.